Welcome everybody, and thank you very much for coming to the 7th talk of the Thursday NanoSpin-off talks organized by the Cátedra Simancas of Nanotechnology. Today I have the pleasure to introduce you Albert Calleja. Albert has a PhD, is a doctor in chemistry and from the Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona, I think, and currently is the CEO of OXOLUTIA. OXOLUTIA is a startup company, arised in 2010 from our colleagues from Barcelona, from the Institute of Materials Science of Barcelona, the group of Xavi Obradors, Teresa Puig, so on. And with the mission to scale up nanostructures, high temperature superconductors from the worldwide top lab scale results. And currently the main product of this company is the nanostructure superconductors, the second generation of tapes, and also the photovoltaic solar cells made with 3D printers. Well, during the talk, Albert is going to talk us about the company growth process, highlighting important aspect like technology transfer from the modern institution, staff qualification, public and private support, technological developments. So I believe that this talk will be very useful for us, for our institute, and I think also inspired to do the same, maybe in the future, no? Okay, so thank you very much, Albert, and your talk.
Okay, thank you for your nice introduction. I'm just sharing the screen. I hope that you can see right screen. Okay, thanks. First of all, I would like to thank Inma for inviting me to give this talk in the framework of these workshops. Thank you very much. And as you can see from the title, I would like to present, to give an overview of our history as a startup company arising from a national lab, and also give some advices or hints or personal opinion. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. You're free, of course, to think whatever. I think that some advices can be useful if you are thinking of, or at some time of your life, this idea crosses your mind and you think that it's time to create a company, a technology-based company, then I hope to give you some hints to be successful. Okay. Okay. Moving on. What is OXOLUTIA? OXOLUTIA is a spin-off company, as already commented, which was founded in 2010 and arose from Material Science Institute of Barcelona. You can see here on the left, which belongs to the National Research Council, to CSIC. Okay. From legal for legal causes, let's say, the administration cannot be in CSIC, should be typically in scientific parks, because they have this mission of hosting, of incubating the companies from the campus, and in our case was the scientific research park from Barcelona, and this colorful building you see in the middle. And as we will see in some minutes, we were founded by a private company nearly from the start, which is an industrial company in the copper foundry sector, which is North Catalonia. Okay. Okay, we specialized in chemically derived nanostructure functional oxide syntons, which means all this set of long words. Okay, you will see better in an image. This is the kind of product and the technology behind which gives explanation of this birth of this company. This is a multi-layer, flexible, composite material in form of thin films, some below the micron size. This is like a building which is set up on a metallic substrate, which is really the thickest part. This is not to scale, of course. The metallic substrate is like 100 microns thick. And then on top of this, there are some layers, typically ceramic layers, oxide layers, with the active layers in which the current will flow, which is YPCO high temperature superconductor, which becomes superconductor below 92 kelvins approximately. Okay, this is typically more than 1 micron thick film, and this below this temperature can hold supercurrent with high density. And of course, there are some top layers on top to protect. The difficulty, the technical difficulty in this material is that all these crystals that are shown here are perfectly aligned both in plane and out of plane. I think this is a single crystal, because otherwise the superconductor will have weaklings and low current. And the challenge is to have this single crystallinity along the length of these tapes, and as you will see, they can be kilometers in length. So the technical challenge is very huge. And this is the product and the technology behind we wanted to work it out in this startup company, which, okay, we can call it a spin-off company because it comes from a national research center. And apart from that, to add more difficulty, then we want to deposit these films by a technique which is inkjet printing. Inkjet printing is a digital manufacturing process in which we will start from precursor inks, which will be deposited on top of these layers and then heat treated under very exquisite conditions to crystallize the oxides from the salts that are dissolved in this salt. And then under some very narrow window of processing, this will crystallize in the right direction, in the right orientation. The building should be well oriented always, just not to have grain boundaries or large angle grain boundaries at least. And this we want to make by inkjet printing, which allows us high degrees of freedom, even to change the thickness or the composition, even the composition. Okay. So some of you that maybe you're not very acquainted with superconductors will ask yourselves, okay, this is useful for what? What are they useful for? Okay, they are useful in lots of applications, but just to say the most important ones, let's say that this is already some materials which are superconducting are already in use in magnetic resonance imaging. Okay, can be used also in cables, transformers, motors, generators, even fault current limiters. This is typical examples of devices made from these superconducting materials, like maybe the most important ones to point out are wind generators, or the well-known high field magnets for high energy physics in colliders, accelerators, synchrotrons, and this kind of large scale facilities. And this one. This is to say that that these tapes find application as substitutes of low temperature superconductors, which are well known, which are metallic ones that can be even stranded, okay, because they sustain higher currents in higher magnetic fields. And in other instances, there are novel applications that can only be attained with these materials like fault current limiters. Okay. And which is the demand of these materials when you say, okay, we want to make a company out of this, but how big will be the demand? Okay, the demand in this case is very, very large, because just to give some example, imagine that you have a 10 megawatt wind generator. This means typically 300 kilometers of tape. So whatever you do, whatever your technology is, whatever your process is, you have to have it as growth rate. You need high productivity in your process. Otherwise, you will not even cover the demand for just a single generator. And for instance, for a cable, you see it here below, 400 meters of cable. This is from the Endesa project. You need 8 kilometers. Just to give some figures of how large the demand is. And this is to show a little bit which was our evolution from 2010, in which we were born, okay, in which we really were passing different stages, from the constitution to the technology transfer to participation in some European projects for financing and for pushing this technology, or the start of sales or extension to new industrial sites from our mother institution. And I will work this a little bit out later on, so you will see some of the issues that are most important in every stage. Okay. Typically, a spin-off company or a startup company which is based on new technology starts from a top result, from a result that it's worth to scale up, to make it grow. And in our case, was this result I'm showing here. I'm simplifying things, but just for the sake of clarity, this is a paper from Nature Materials, in which some nanocomposites are described, in which we have this epitaxial, well-ordered YBCL superconductor, and among these bad matrix, order matrix, there are nanoparticles of a second phase which is not superconducting. And this is very interesting, because this makes the total current that is able to flow much larger than if these nanoparticles weren't there. And this does not happen in any system. Just happens in single systems. In this case, because of interfaces, because of heteropitaxial and this kind of stresses and these kind of things, works very well. And in fact, at temperatures, as you see, like 65 Kelvin, you have flux spinning forces higher than the niobium titanium at helium temperature. So this means that this material has lots of potential for use, because it can withstand very large currents in high magnetic fields. And this is what we want in coils and all these applications I've been talking to you about before. So it's time to go to the swimming pool and throw yourselves and say, okay, we will make this big step of founding the company. And in our case, I acted like they say, that entrepreneur, okay? But of course, all the knowledge and all the experience in this field comes from the national lab. In this case, these three researchers, Professor Xavier Obrados, Professor Teresa Puig, and Xavier Granados were the first together with me to fund this company. And I must say that at that time, we were highly supported by an office from the CIP, which was specialized in giving support to the creation of startup company spin-offs from their centers. I don't know if this already exists or not, but in this case, I'm very thankful to them, because they helped us a lot in guiding us in this process. I'm just giving some steps forward now, This is the team, the maximum number of people we had at some point. This is like 10 people, okay, in like in 2017, I think. Okay, this expanded really. There were more people specialized in different areas, but the message here is that we need specialized people coming from qualified centers. Okay, this is a very difficult technology, so we need people which is familiar and knows the technology and the materials processing and the characterization very well. Otherwise, this is very difficult to push forward. In our case, we incorporated people like Rosana Blatt or Marta Villardey or even Victor or Chaye Palmer, to say the most important ones, which gave us technical support in all this. Especially Roxana Blatt was very important because she made her PhD in these materials, having very high values of these currents in superconducting tapes. And of course, the founding scientific group was acting like scientific advisory board. We had periodic meetings to align strategies and developments. And how about technology transfer? Sorry for these images. They are not intended to offend anyone, but this is how I felt at some point. Imagine that we were founded in 2010, but it was not before 2 years that we signed the final license agreements of the patents, which gave us the name of spin-off from CSIC. This is because CSIC has a very administrative burden. This is difficult, we know, but imagine our position during these 2 years, where we are nowhere. So very difficult, the company is there, but no real link. Okay, this is because, okay, so the message here is be patient and everything will flow, okay? Don't worry, because CSIC is a very large institution and it takes time. Okay, later the CSIC implemented some more stringent rules for startups arising from him, and then we had to sign a contract agreement which fixed issues that were not regulated in the license, which were merely affecting patent transfer, which were like physical incubation inside the SIG, which offices are you going to occupy, which are your working conditions. The duration is fixed. You cannot be there forever. You have to exit at some point, which is fixed in some years, typically. You have to establish which will be the participation rights of the SIG in the different equity rounds that will come. CSIC also reserves for himself information rights, like equity rounds, like which are the sales of your technology, and so on and so on. Also, in this agreement, which has a lot of pages, of course, you have the economical return of the SIG is fixed, or at least the maximum is fixed. Then you have to negotiate, if it's the case, with clauses like down payments or royalties or whatever. And of course, insurances, because if you are incubated inside the National Research Council and you blow it up, for instance, you have to pay everything that you have destroyed. Okay, or I'm not thinking about any personal damage, of course. So at that time, I felt like this thief or burglar you see on the right, because I thought it was just stealing the SIG with me. Okay, and this is how you really feel. But you have to be resilient and think, okay, this is like this, and it's okay. But at some point, I felt that CSIC had to be a little bit more, had more understanding with this kind of initiatives. But I think that this is improving, of course. I have said that the first contract or the first signature with CSIC was the license of the 5 patents. 5 patents on the processing and on the materials of the superconducting tapes. But after that, we were able to produce 4 patents more but this is because of collaboration between the spin-off company and the mother institution. This is, I think, rather typical that you have a background patents and foreground patents because you're already collaborating, and then you find new inventions in the process. And it's very important that you protect them as soon as possible. But of course, patents are very costly. And take into account that materials have long development cycles in general, particularly if you start from the material itself, not the device or the engineering, which is after that. So, but you have to sustain the patents, you have to keep the patents, and if you have them abroad, it can be like 20,000 euros per year for a single patent in 3 or 4 countries. So this is difficult. So I would say, don't get mad about number of patents. It's better to have less patents, but stronger. And if possible, at maturity levels as high as possible, because it gives time for you to license this as soon as possible. Okay. And of course, think about other IP protection methods like trade secrets. You can go to the notary currently. It's very cheap and very easy. Or industrial models, or at low level trademarks or copyrights or non-disclosure agreements with potential customers or collaborators. Anyway, I think that patents are necessary for a startup, especially at the beginning and in the exit phase. I would say keep 1 or 2 minimum. Okay. And then, of course, as the life of the company evolved, you have to get to more maturity levels of your technology, and at some point you need financing, more financing. Okay, and then you need to knock the door of capital risk companies or venture capital risk companies, and this is what we did in 2016, I think. And this was achieved with Victoria Venture Capital, which is a Catalan capital risk firm specialized in spin-off companies in the energy sector, which goes really to the point of the company, which is energy, which are materials for medicine or for instrumentation. And this was not for free. I mean, we were in negotiations 1-2 years before, and they say, okay, I will invest in your company if you fulfill these technical milestones. And we went to the notary, and then we swear that we were fulfilling this and this technical current and open voltage and whatever, and length, and okay. And if this was okay, then the investment will be freed. And okay, we managed to make all the 5. I remember there were five technical milestones, and then we were granted 300,000 euros for growing, which was very helpful indeed. So at some point you have to sell something to others. You have to be prepared for that. One of the milestones was the growth of 10 meters. 10 meters of this demonstration. I think I have to. This is just to show you that for just making 10 meters. It was like 3 days full time, day and night, with our equipment. It was a good experience, but we managed to make 10 meters. Okay. And these are the 10 meters coiled in a plastic cylinder. And we were making public dissemination of this result in Geneva in 2017. Okay, this black aspect is because of the superconductors. Water is black. Okay, this was like 1 micron thick superconductor, epitaxial, and so on. But of course, you would say, okay, you are really making a deal with the devil. Maybe you are doing, maybe not, but you have to be conscious and aware of what you're doing. So yeah, it's true that you are dealing with the devil, because think that there's some shareholder agreement that you sign stating that there are some economic actuations that you cannot do, that these financial actuations are below some point, because otherwise you have to ask for authorization. If you want to sell shares, you have to keep the rights, the very stringent rights the venture capital firm has written in it. The exit conditions are already set with a minimum price for the company. Okay, you cannot do whatever you want. You have to keep to these conditions. There's protection from the venture capital for any segregation of the activities of the company or any partner that can leave and establish on his own. Then there's some clauses to avoid this competence, of course. And there is the drag along clause and the tag along clause, which I don't know if you know about this. Drag along means that if there's a minimum percentage of partners that want to sell, and the minimum price is attained, you are obliged to sell. You are dragged together with the rest of the partners. You cannot refuse this or block. No, cannot. Okay. And the other one, which is more positive than this one, is the tag along. Tag along means that the minor shareholders should have the same treatment that the ones having more shares. I mean, they are paid the same that the majority people having the shares. This is in general good. But in general, you have to avoid dilution. Okay, you start maybe your company with 25% like me, or 50 or 75 or whatever percentage. But as you put more people in the party, you are diluted. You have less and less of your company. So the solution for not getting too much diluted is applying issue premiums. This means primas de emisión in Spanish. This means that I will punish you with 9 times, 8 times, 6 times the real value in shares, with some money that you will pay, but you will not receive the proportionate part of the company. It's kind of making him pay for the previous knowledge. This is the reasoning behind, and in general is very well received and is understood perfectly by the investor. You have just to negotiate which is the ratio. Okay. Yes, I want to make now some comments about the first sales. In our case, we had the opportunity to make sales before the sale of the technology we were growing up. This was not sought at the beginning, and it came just by surprise, or because it came because our own effort in making the equipment had advantages for other people, and they were asking us, can you do the same furnace? Can you do the same sensor? Can you make this furnace more uniform in temperature, so that is 1 degree more or less up and down? And so okay, we just took the challenge and we started making some furnaces together with some companies, and this really was successful. We were also making sales of these ceramic targets you see here. These are small pieces, maybe maximum 4 or 5 inches in diameter, which were using our own competitors. There were companies in Europe, for instance, that were using pulse laser deposition or electron beam deposition. Okay, and they needed this as a raw material. So we started to sell these products to them, because we had some knowledge about polymetallurgy coming from the old days. Okay, we took advantage of this, and on the other hand, this company provided us with the substrates of these superconducting tapes in return, because this building has many layers, and just decided, okay, let's have just the one without the superconductor first, which is already 3 or 4 layers, and then we will put our layer there by inkjet printing and see what happens. Okay, and we will establish some collaboration afterwards. And then we made targets of very different compositions and YBCO, cerium oxide, titanates, cobaltates, manganites, and many others. And the third part of the sales were constituted by private projects. This also was not intended, was just appearing, and we took the challenge also, because we needed cash, we needed money to push our own technology. Okay, and we made projects with Bosch, which is here in Zaragoza, probably you know, for improving of materials. We were also selling granulates, which is not like a compact piece, but it's like a rounded bulk piece in granules like rice, okay, with very high purity and size and controlled size distribution for electron beam deposition for our competitors as well. And also some other deposition of oxides like fluidra or some lithographic analysis or inkjet printing of metallic contacts for a spin-off like Advanced Nanotechnologies from University of Barcelona. And we were very proud to get a private project with the Office of Naval Research in the United States for producing metal organic inks for their laser depositions. Okay, it was really very helpful. And this graph shows just the evolution of the sales between 2014, which was the first sale we made. It was just a big furnace. This was our first sales ever, okay, until 2018. We were able to sell for 250,000 euros approximately, which is not bad, and without making any special commercial effort on this. Just going to the congresses and talk to people by phone, and that's it. So it was really a very satisfied experience. And of course, you also get public financing for sustaining your activities. Okay, financing, in summary, financing came from 3 parts: the private financing, the sales, and the public financing. In our case, public financing was very important. Okay, we were in 3 different European projects, from let's call regular calls in FP7 and H2020. These are the best conditions. I would suggest to go directly and straight forward to these kind of calls, because they cover like 70 to 100% of your costs. So this is very important. On the other hand, we also had some national projects, but national projects in Spain typically were loans, in fact, that we had to reintegrate afterwards. We had 1 Impacto and 2 Retos Colaboración, which are Impactos more or less. Okay, great and easy financing. I would put it between quotes, but take care about amortization, which comes sooner or later, after 3 years of not paying anything, because material science, again, or material development is very long. So at some point you have to return this money, and you have to be prepared for it. So think about your strategy, because otherwise the loans will sink you. And also we took advantage also of regional calls from Catalonia in the form of ERANET or valorization projects. And of course, in the case of our technical responsible, we were enjoying this Torres Quevedo project, which gives very great financing for having very skilled and qualified people in your team, which I would also suggest to go for it without any hesitation. Okay, this graphic shows, this plot shows a little bit our evolution in revenues, in cash, taking into account all the financing sources I've been commenting: private, public, and sales. Okay, we had until 2017 we were able to raise like 1,600,000 euros, which 27% of them came from the private and sales part, and 73% by public financing. Then you see here the importance also of the public financing in all these efforts. Okay. Okay. And then I should now comment about different business you can detect while being in your main activity. Okay, OXOLUTIA was founded for superconducting tapes, as I was saying, but at some point we realized that it could be also possible to make photovoltaic solar cells which were based on copper oxide. YPCO superconductor has a lot of copper inside, okay? And we thought, okay, this is not so different. And then we started from an idea which had an economical reasoning behind, and then we started by making this effort in parallel with the superconductors, okay? And we had one European project. We also were awarded by Fundación Repsol. They have an entrepreneurs fund, which we select like 10 projects yearly in the field of energy, and they help them to grow. They help us. They help them by giving some coaching and these kind of things. Okay, so we were very, very happy that we were selected. Okay, in this field of solar oxides. Okay, copper oxide. This is copper oxide, which acts as a P-type, and the N-type is zinc oxide. So very simple oxides, which can go up to 20% theoretically of yield. Okay. This is one of the prototypes we made, and this shows the importance of showing others your technology. You have to have a minimum viable product in the jargon of the lean startup methodology. You have to make something that some customers, some people interested in it can immediately see what it's about and can play around and see how it works. This is very important because people want to touch, want to ask, want to see. Paper sustains everything, when the prototype is more convincing. Okay, in this case, we just a very simple assembly showing that this solar cell was working with high open voltages, relatively high intensities. So wherever you have the possibility, think about having some minimum viable product, so some prototype that you can show. But to tell you the truth, if you detect some technology, process, or service out of your main activity, segregate it as soon as possible. Maybe it is really wise to wait for 1 or 2 years because you can share your facilities, your equipment. This is very good for starting, but then you have to segregate and create another company if possible. Okay, because otherwise you will lose the focus. You have to be focused on this scale up to the superconducting tapes. So cohabitation is possible, but for a limited time, because otherwise you will get completely confused with everything and you will not progress in the extent that you want to in your main activity, which is superconducting tapes in our case. So we try it, but I must say that perovskite solar cells are the mainstream, and it's very difficult to convince an investor to invest in anything that is not perovskite at this moment. That's the world. Okay, and then okay, we were just maturing, we were growing and everything, and then we had to leave our model institution to an industrial site, and this happened in 2017, I think. Yeah, and yes, we hired a 500 square meter site at 8 kilometers away from the campus of Autónoma University near Barcelona. Okay, it was very nice because we were just on our own. designing our spaces and our equipment on our own. So this was really like, okay, we are a company now. We are a real company. We are out of the, we are not researchers. Because some people, if you are in the campus, you are a researcher. I have a company, I have two. Anyway, you are a researcher because you're in the campus. So this stigma is removed completely if you go out from there. Okay. And I must say that this supposed a big investment in reconditioning all this site. Lots of investment, which we got from, mainly from the investor. And of course, your fixed cost will raise like a mad. Okay. So I would say better do it when you have large investment of minimum half or 1 million euros, and or you have repetitive sales, or you have your maturity level of technology higher than seven or higher, let's say, because otherwise time will eat you, okay, before you get the real product you want, and you have to spend lots of money. So this is a big step you have to consider very, very wisely. In our case, I think we were just a little bit early, I think, now, seen from the past. This is just to show you some of the equipment we had at that time there. This is the reel-to-reel inkjet printing pilot plant. Here is where the inkjet printer is going to deposit all the liquid drop-wise on your substrate, and this goes continuously from one end to another, and then is deposition. There's the first drying. Sometimes there are some UV curing, because we had some UV curing agents to keep the liquid fixed, and then went to a first heatment and then a second heatment, which decomposes the organic matter completely, and then you cool and then you coil it up. And from this first process, then goes the one which grows the superconducting layer. This was made in this equipment you see in this image, which is like a 3-meter long furnace with some reels at the end, temperature controllers, gas flow controllers, pump. Everything was automatized in a single software in which we could control everything, leave it at night and for days. And here is where the superconducting layer crystallizes to get functional. And of course, there also the oxygenation process for the most experienced ones, which was made in batch mode, okay, not continuously. Of course, when you are out of the campus, you have to fulfill all the regulations of the security, of the safety rules, and hundreds and hundreds of other authorizations and permits that you need from your local authority, from wherever. So better have an external consultant that can be really behind all this, that can really certify that everything is going up to the laws. And this can take you like 1 year, okay, until you can make the first centimeter of your superconducting tape. So this is a delay you have to take into account. This is one of our top results I would like to show you. We got like 220 amperes centimeter width, which okay, maybe this is a number that says you nothing, but for those who are in the field, this is promising superconducting current at 77 Kelvin. This is to show you that it's very important to track all the results you have, and to have some numbers which everyone can understand of your progress, okay? Make quantifications out of your technology, whatever, price, length, speed, reaction kinetics, whatever it is, parameterize it, and maybe make hang a long paper in the wall so everyone can see how these points are increasing, because this is very important in the team. And of course, this image on the left, on the right, is the hole mapping image. We made like a homemade hole mapper to monitor the magnetic field, which is caused by the supercurrents. Then this gives you a 3D map in which you can see the homogeneity of your film. Okay. Okay, this is the evolution I already have commented upon. We had other projects, European projects like FastGrid. You see here is another European project which helped us in the development of tapes for 4 current limiters in this case, and it's already finished. And I don't know which is the time, but this is my last slide. Let me share with you some comments about the company and on this adventure of creating a company from scratch and then make it grow. I would say, and I've been telling this you several times, but I insist, advanced materials like nanomaterials generally, not always, but generally have long development cycles and high investment needs. So more than biotech or ICT. So be smart when thinking about your strategy and design a suitable roadmap. You have to have a roadmap of what you are going to do in every time. I'm going to make 1 meter, 2 meters, this current, this time, and try to keep a plan A, plan B, or even plan C if needed. You have to design a proper roadmap. I would say that a final prototype of a functional device is completely desirable. I mean, with the tape, you do nothing. With the tape, you cannot convince anyone. But if you put this tape on a windmill, even if it's this size, a small size, or in a coil with some sensor of the magnetic field, or something like that, you will immediately convince everyone that the technology works. So the easiest is to show a prototype of a device, not the material, the device, directly. If you cannot do it, ask or look for engineers which can do it, or whatever group in the world can do it. But you have to have something to show. This is very important. I would also suggest to use Lean Startup. For those, I think that Lean Startup is very well known now, but for those who don't, please read this book by Enric Ries of Lean Startup methodology, because it's very helpful in how you have to make your strategy for developing the technology. Look for early adopters, make minimum viable products, make interviews with potential investors or customers, okay? And try to delay the entry of capital risk until you have a minimum maturity level of 6-7, because otherwise, on one hand, the capital risk can be impatient at some point because they have to wait for too long. They want the return as soon as possible. So you have to say, okay, I'm little by little increasing my performance. Okay, very good. Stay in the lab and give me more. Okay, so, and on the other hand, you dilute yourself quite easily. So think about that. I would say that also when you start by some idea, technology, service, product, whatever, from a national research institute, there are sometimes that people there can be rather dogmatic, in the sense that they have very fixed ideas of what the things should be. So, okay, everyone is dogmatic at some point, but try to be open-minded, to think out of the box and look for other solutions, alliances, or even strange ideas that some people can really think about, because it might be the solution for your scale-up, maybe. So think big also, think in big scale, not short scale. Think that you can be a large company in the future. And also, just to not lose focus on the technological development, look for collaboration for your non-critical parts. I mean, we had, for instance, just to give you an example, we had to improve the thermal homogeneity in our furnaces, because crystal growth is very sensitive to small variations in temperature. So we needed like 1 meter with a maximum of 1 or 2 degrees in maximum variation. No furnace in the market could fulfill this. So we had to make some technological development to fulfill this. But this was absolutely necessary for your technology, but maybe it's not automatizing your process with LabVIEW. Maybe there are other softwares that other companies can do it in very short time. So take account this kind of considerations. Focus on the important things. But I can tell you more things about this. But really, the most important part is the team, is the people. Without people, you cannot do nothing. This is the most important part in a company, and even in a startup company. A startup company even more important, I would say. Just so please share benefits with them. Celebrate all the success. Okay, now the current is twice than 1 year ago. Okay, just celebrate. Give a day off. Go to the restaurant, whatever. Make a party, whatever. Because motivation is our motor, and creativity and productivity is the key for the success of this kind of creative projects like this. So perform also inclusive leadership. Don't be the one man or the one woman company. There's only one showing up in the photos, in the social media. No, it's the team. Everybody is contributing, not just you. I mean, you're an entrepreneur, of course, but the team is what makes the company work. So perform inclusive leadership. Perform training so that people can grow. I think that people is very motivated when they grow personally in a company. Okay. And okay, that's all from my side. I hope that you have enjoyed this talk. And this is my email if you want to contact me for any question or anything. I'm available. Thank you very much. So, questions? I think that the hardest is the private. It's less bureaucratic. Yeah, it's less bureaucratic, but you have to convince these guys that your project is interesting and that it will grow, that the team is consistent, and you have a very clear roadmap what you want to do, and of course that there's a market behind. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah, they want return of investment. They know that these guys are investing in 10 companies maybe, and they know that most of them will fail, but just that one is a unicorn or a very good business, it covers all the cost of the rest. They know this because it's capital risk. For capital risk, name says it all. But yeah, but they take it very seriously, and you have to be prepared for being pressed by these guys also. They press you, of course, and they are not technical people. They don't care about your furnace going wrong, or I just want results. Yeah, that's the devil's side. Yeah.
Mainly from the point that you are with the long time that you need to develop the material and also the final product. It's not only the material, it's a final product. And at the beginning you were talking about with the windmills that we need kilometers,
yeah.
That you were only able to prepare 10 meters. So there any other application where this small, I think it's a real electronics, 10 meters. You can apply this at this stage, or because that should be the initial stage. No?
Yeah, very good question, and these were our discussions in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah, what we can do with 10 or 100 meters, even 100 meters fall short of what is needed. So yeah, fault current limiters can be a solution, because in fault current limiters you need only you can survive with short pieces. Okay, not the ideal case, but can be done. And sometimes we were thinking about cutting this tape and making some stacks for making magnets out from these stacks. This was an idea from Cambridge University long time ago, and then we thought about making magnets for flywheels and this kind of devices, just in the form of squares or rectangular pieces, just stuck one on another, and then with high density, and then a resin which can really give coherence, and use it like a piece that can be induced and make a magnetic field, very strong magnetic field. Not as much as it were bulk, but you can survive.
And also another important key point is the technology development itself, the injected method, no? The inject, you get a constant temperature to grow the material. So if you think the other way around, and which other kind of materials could benefit from this technology for processing on tapes, you can imagine that you need those long tapes for many things with a specific material. Did you look for that?
Yeah, at some point we had some requests for planarization on metallic surfaces. So one way of planarizing is depositing a liquid film and then heat it, and then the oxide you get from the composition of the salts in the ink really leverage all the sharp irregularities in your surface, and you get a smoother surface, like when you get a mask on your face for hiding the wrinkles, something like this, just to give some analogy. Yes, we were working. We made like 100 meters of this tape in this pilot plant, but the effort was stopped there, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing all this experience. I think it's really useful for everybody this year, because they are starting looking at the materials. With very nice pictures and the TDM high resolution.
Yeah.
And out of that, you can make something that's really important.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe a silly question. You are the CEO of the company, but who is the owner of the company?
Yeah. There are like nine partners. Currently, we are 9 partners. 9 partners. There are 4 researchers, me, this venture capital company, the company of the copper foundry, and 2 individuals, two investors, to provide individual investors. 9 at this moment. So I think there are too much. Maybe too much. Yeah. No, it's something that you have to review, to take care of it. Too many partners can give very bad decision-making process. So it's better to keep it as low as possible. But in our case, this is like the history we were following, and this is the final photo. But it's better to establish some agreements between partners at the beginning, if possible. Say, okay, I will exit, but I will dilute myself up to X%, because otherwise, when you are in the board of directors, it's like crazy. Too much people. Everyone has his own opinions. But okay, it's better to keep it as low as possible. But in our case, it's like that.
Because we're science and we don't learn.
Sorry, I cannot hear you very well.
The ability to communicate with the people, with the investors, with the clients.
Yeah.
We are scientists.
Yeah, this is very good point. You have touched a very important point. I think that there are people who can do it and people who can learn it, but people who can do it because it's not in their nature to do like this. I would say that scientists are very white people and very different people. There are people like in the society, more or less able to negotiate, others more or less able to make some leadership of your team. But of course, you have to be of a special material for being able to talk to an investor, then talk to a customer, motivate your team. Okay, but this you can learn a little bit. You can learn. In fact, I made a master before that. I made a master on industrial organization. I just prepared myself for this because I thought it was very useful. You can make a master or whatever. An MBA is very advisable. Some business master. Yeah. Not necessary, but it's useful.
Have you had some experience of competitors bringing the patents to have? And which is the situation of this product in Europe with respect to Japan, China?
Yeah. In our case, I should say that there were few companies which were betting on the chemical inks. Most of them are using physical vapor deposition processes. Okay, so we had like 2 real competitors which could use this kind of chemical inks, and there was in fact some competition and some conflicts with the nanocomposite formulations, because you know that Americans, okay, I'm thinking about American superconductors, make very strong patents, and they are allowed to make very wide patents in their offices, in their own national offices, which is like the periodic table. And then when you want to enter this market in the United States, they say the patent office there says, okay, no claim by you is accepted. Everyone is already accepted by written in the American company, and you have to argue, you have to look for arguments, and we had some struggle with American superconductors and the American patent office, but we lose this battle completely. Yeah, there was no way. So we thought, okay, we will do it in Europe and try to make some alliance with American superconductors if it's the case in the future. And I know at some point there were movements that they wanted to buy us at some point, but this is another story.
I also have a curiosity. What about the taxes of the company have to pay, because this is a technology?
Yeah.
Different
Taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a very important point too. Very good question, because when you're a startup, you're having losses in your accounts. In the early stages, you are spending money, and you don't have any payback against this money. So the total balance will say you that you are losing money, and then in this case, you have a negative credit. The administration says, okay, you have negative credit. This means that whenever you have benefits, you have to return this money. Or it goes against the payment in the following years when you are positive in your balance. That's the way, that's the way. Okay, so this means that for a startup company which have losses at the beginning, this is quite normal. and you can sustain these losses for some years. But according to the law, if you have losses every time, at some point you can be obliged to liquidate your company. So be careful, because if you are stating losses every now and then and in every year, then this can be a real problem. They can oblige you to close your company because it has losses every time. But I think now it's more than 10 years, I think, at the moment. So you have enough time. There is a question in the chat. Ah, no, it's you. Okay. sorry. Okay. I just saw.
Thank you again. Next Thursday, last Thursday of the month. We have here an appointment. Yeah.